In this episode, I'm addressing the myth of consistency, or maybe I should say the misunderstanding of what it actually means to be consistent. So if you have a fear that you aren't, quote, consistent enough when showing up online, or maybe you have an extreme lack of creativity and enthusiasm for sharing your message online, this episode is for you. Enjoy. Welcome to All In with Allie, the podcast for online business owners and entrepreneurs who are ready to create the life and business of their dreams. I'm so happy you're here. So, this conversation is a perfect stepping stone based on previous conversations. We have absolutely led ourselves here. It has been a natural progression. If you have not listened to the past couple episodes, not the one previously, the Q&A, because I pre-recorded that, but the episode with Keely and then the one right before that one. I can't remember the exact title, so I'll link it in the show notes. But if you are feeling a little funky right now when it comes to just showing up in general online, creating content, playing the game, or what I lovingly refer to as tap dancing for the internet in order to get in front of the right clients, in order to earn sales for your business, this episode is, again, it goes hand in hand with the other topics that we've been talking about. And I wanted to share this episode, and what inspired this conversation was last week I went to sit down to record an episode, as I do, because I put out weekly episodes and they 9 times out of 10 come out on a Monday. And I sat down to record it and I had nothing to say. Nothing. And instead of saying, okay, I have nothing to say, great, I'm going to move on, I sat there and tried to force myself to want to talk about something and tried to curate a meaningful conversation. And I just had this thought, why? Why? Is that what I believe is going to move the needle here? Is that what I believe needs to be done to best serve you? To force myself to talk about a topic that I don't even really necessarily want to talk about, that isn't even truly resonating with me, simply to post my normal Monday episode? And the answer is no. No. And I'm just having this epiphany. The big shift that's happening with me is I'm really questioning a lot of beliefs that I didn't even, some I wasn't even fully aware that I had when it comes to being consistent and when it comes to what I need to do in order to be successful or in order to do my job. It looks like showing up every single week without fail, talking about something, whether I want to talk about it or not. It looks like posting X amount of times on Instagram, showing up X amount of times on stories, creating X amount of offers or programs. Again, whether I really want to or not. Sometimes I absolutely do, and that works out. But other times I'm doing it not because I want to, but because I have a belief that I should. And that if I don't, I'm messing up and I'm not going to be successful. And this epiphany is do I want to continue to believe that? Is that a belief that's not only serving me, but you? And the answer is no, it's not. Not at all. First and foremost, I value my time. It's the most precious commodity we have. And I value your time as a listener. So why would I ever show up and sit behind this mic and speak things that I'm not excited to talk about? That doesn't serve anybody. Not really. Not at the level that I want to serve. I'm not saying it's for nothing, but I guess what I am now ingraining into my psyche is, but what if I chose to show up when I want to? When I actually have something that I really want to say, that I really believe in. And by the way, anything that I speak on this mic, I really believe in. But again, it's the energy behind it. And like, what if I only showed up from a place of like, I cannot wait to get this out of me because I know the value that it's going to bring to you. What if, even though that's technically less, showing up less than what I was before, it ends up being more in terms of the value that it brings and the energy behind it and the ripple effect of that energy. That is, to me, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. I got a DM from a past client who I just love dearly, and she has a business and she has a full-time job, and she's in the process of leaving this full-time job, but she's still in this place where she's juggling both and she's, balancing both. And she sent me this message and she said, I really resonated with the podcast that I linked below that I referred to a few minutes ago. She said, thank you for sharing that. I've been really getting in my head lately about the right strategy that I need to be following. She said, I take these courses and I go and I look at what other people are doing and I want this so bad. But none of these strategies feel good and they just feel icky to me. And it's frustrating because I see that it works for them. So what is wrong with me? Why am I being inconsistent? Why am I self-sabotaging? And by the way, I'm paraphrasing. She didn't say like exactly that, but that was like the gist. And what I told her is those strategies do work. 100%. Like you can see that they're working. You can actually see the proof of it, and you can go, and it's not hard to reverse engineer somebody's strategy, especially on Instagram. You can see how often somebody posts. You can see the type of content that they put out. You can track how often they show up in stories. You can see how many emails they're sending out. So again, it's not that strategy doesn't work. But what we need to remember is that it's not the only strategy that works. And just because that strategy is working for that specific person at that specific time doesn't mean that it's going to be working for them when things shift in their life. And what I told her is there are so many strategies that will work for you, but the one that will actually work right now is the one that makes sense for you and that feels good for you. If you are trying to follow a strategy that is bringing you so much resistance, that is going to translate and you won't be, quote, consistent with it, and you're always going to be looking around for the next thing. But if you could get around to honoring the season that you're in and realize, okay, I have a unique situation. It doesn't feel good to post every day. It doesn't feel good to make reels at this cadence or make reels at all, maybe. But what would feel really good? If I knew that it would work, what would feel really good to me? And I fully believe that if you could answer that question and let that be enough, and then anchor in the belief that that's enough, it would work for you. And you can go find examples of that too. But where we have an issue, those of us who struggle with this and that feel like we're not doing enough, is because we have bought into the myth or the misunderstanding of what it means to be consistent. We have a warped, inaccurate, or partially inaccurate idea of what consistency actually is. So before I read you the literal definition of consistency, first I want you to ask yourself and take a beat and think like, if I said, hey, define consistency for me right now, what would you say? Okay, go. Now, I would bet many of you just said out loud, showing up every day, showing up often, doing something at a specific frequency, which isn't wrong. That is a version of consistency. But there's a spectrum to this, and there's no right or wrong. So the actual definition, or one of them, which I actually love so much, one of these definitions is harmony of conduct or practice with profession. Harmony. Consistency is harmony. Harmony can be hardcore in the paint, posting every day, multiple times a day, 7 days a week, 365. It can also be a couple of times a week. It can also be once a week. It could also be a couple times a month. But you're showing up regardless. But harmony. So I'm not going to sit here and say that you can post once a month and expect incredible results. I don't know if that's true. I believe that for some of you that can be enough. There's exceptions to every rule. And one belief that I have anchored in, I'm always anchoring in for myself, is I am always the exception to the rule when it serves me. I believe that's the game that we get to play. We get to set these rules. So that's what I'm doing. But my point is like, we almost set ourselves up to fail, right? We create these nearly impossible standards based on somebody else's framework because it's working for them. And then when we don't meet it perfectly to the T, instead of saying, no big deal, I still showed up, I did my best, and I feel good, great, that's going to work for me. Instead, we say, I didn't do it perfectly, therefore I failed, therefore I'm a failure, therefore I suck, therefore I'm never going to be successful, therefore blah, 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 and send ourselves into this downward spiral. When that does not have to be true. And it's not true. But if you believe it with your whole heart, you will prove that to be true. And we do this. And this is where the self-sabotage actually kicks in. It's not because you weren't perfectly, quote, consistent. It's because your feelings around that and the negative spiral that ensues, and then what you do after that. So instead of saying, oh, I had a plan for myself, didn't meet it perfectly. I would like to meet it better next time, so I'm going to do that. And what I did was enough, that's good, but I would love to see what it would look like for me to kick it up a notch. Instead of doing that, we do the downward spiral, and then we say, what's the point of even trying? And it creates this very inconsistent stop, go in our business, which negatively reinforces beliefs that do not serve us. That's usually what happens. And then we wonder why we feel a lack of creativity. And we wonder why we don't get excited to create content and to show up. Because our mind is being a little bitch and is not having our back. Right? Because we have the wrong idea of consistency, of the level of consistency that creates the type of success that we want to create. And we also don't even realize that our definition of consistency is actually in conflict with our definition of success, a lot of us. So what I mean by that is you started this business for a level of freedom. Every single one of us listening started this for a level of freedom. to be able to work when you want to be able to create what you want to be able to earn what it is that you want, right? To create the rules of the game, to not have to live to somebody else's standards or play by anybody else's rules or to be managed, but to be able to set those standards and rules for ourselves, to have the freedom and autonomy to do that. But then we come in and we create just a little self-imposed prison for ourselves. And we call that freedom. We call that entrepreneurship. We act like the boss that we hate, that we were trying to get away from. If you don't do this exactly like this in this way, you suck. You're not cut out for this. You're not going to be successful. Dang, I wouldn't want to work for me. I wouldn't want to work for that person. But we do this sometimes. So, what if we didn't? What if we took the power back? And that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of looking at this from a new perspective of like, oh, okay. And here's the thing, because again, I had some insecurity being honest about this. And I'm going to put a pin in this right now, but I'll circle back to it. I want to talk about the power of being honest with your people. We're going to come back to it because this has started so many incredible conversations and connections with so many of you, which has led to so many beautiful things. We'll circle back to this. But there was a part of me that was like, gosh, am I wishy-washy? Because over the summer, I was going hard in the paint, right? Like I was in a season of, let's see how far we can go on multiple fronts, right? In my business, in my content creation, I had these goals for myself to post every single day, maybe a couple times a day. I was working out 6 days a week. I was going hard and it felt so good and it was so fun. And I got incredible results from it. But now that feels like a prison to me. That feels, from where I am right now, absolutely unattainable. Not that I can't do it. I can do anything. So can you. Anybody can, we can all hustle and do the thing. That's what got us here. But unattainable in that, I cannot be bothered. Absolutely not. And I had a little insecurity about that. Gosh, am I just trying to make excuses for myself? Am I suffering from just a hardcore case of bitch assness and I'm trying to write it off as something good? But the answer is no. And some people might disagree with that. But I've genuinely thought about this because again, if I'm going to sit here in front of this mic, I'm going to make sure I'm saying something that I'm believing that I believe is going to serve you. So I've thought this through. And what I realize is no, it's a different season, figuratively and literally a different season. Literally. We are not robots. We're not robots. So yes, over the summer, it felt so good to hustle my face off. That's exactly what I wanted. That's what I was craving. Let's go hard. Push it to the limit. Let's make everybody hate me because I'm so, quote, consistent. And they don't know how I do it. That's exactly what I wanted. And now it's not. Now it's no, you know what? I want to show up when I want to show up. I will show up because I know the power of showing up. I'm not abandoning my business, have responsibilities as a business owner, which includes content creation. And I'm a creator. I have to create. It's like breathing to me. I have to do it. But it doesn't have to look like that frequency, nor do I want it to. We're not robots. We are women. And we have to think this too, me and Chris, we kind of go back and forth on this because he's very masculine in his approach to a lot of things and that it's just do it. Nike, just do it. And I'm cracking up right now because like how many times did I quote Nike over the past like few months? Because that, sometimes like that's the message. You just do the damn thing. But like, I could be like balls deep in my luteal phase, just like seconds away from being on my period, just hating life, bloated as hell, exhausted, breaking out, wanting to eat everything in sight. And, maybe had plans to go to the gym and then decide, you know what? I'd rather jump out of a window. I'm not going to the gym. And be like, oh, just do it. I'm like, oh, fuck off. No, I'm not a dude, and I have to gently, not gently at all, remind him he is on a 24-hour hormone cycle. So like the just do it mentality for a bro makes sense. You can do that every day. You can just do it every single day. For women, we are different in every way, right? Just do it for us looks like just do what you need to do right now to not murder somebody. It's a little different. And in the same way, like we have different seasons in our businesses too. That's just a fact. For me, I've noticed, and I don't love this because I'm very cautious about creating patterns that I don't necessarily want to create and creating limiting beliefs in my business. So this is something I'm kind of like finessing and working through for myself, but I've noticed, I've been an entrepreneur long enough that I noticed that like my vibe in my business very much follows literal seasons, like in nature, where there's like a buildup in spring and then I'm like hardcore sprinting in the fall. And not always. I've had many, many winters where, and it's actually not even technically winter right now. Anyway, just pretend I didn't say any of that. But I have noticed patterns, but I don't want to believe that because I never want to put myself in a position of like, oh, it's winter, I shouldn't do anything. I want to follow my internal compass. And I believe as women here listening to this is our superpower. We have an incredible intuition and so much feminine wisdom and I believe deeply rooted ancestral wisdom flowing through our veins that is constantly sending us signals, constantly guiding us toward the path of least resistance when it comes to our desires, right? Which looks like when you're doing a strategy that isn't serving you, that isn't necessary, it feels like resistance. When you're doing something that's actually lighting you up, that is in alignment with what you want, it feels like flow. When it's best for you to lean back and be more in your feminine, you don't feel like doing a bunch of shit and pushing. You feel more like leaning back and pulling and attracting. And when it's time to lean forward and take the action, you actually feel like doing that. Now, I do think it's very easy to get convoluted and to let other people's energy kind of mess with us and compare and be tapping into some things that's not yours. So this is a practiced art for sure. And maybe that's what this is that at the ripe age of 37, I'm finally like really starting to pay attention and listen to my own internal compass. And I know the power of that. And that's what I want. So I'm doing that. But I think that's where this misunderstanding comes from. And that's why I call it the myth of consistency, because it's a spectrum. Somebody's level of consistency right now that's working for them doesn't mean that that's what is going to work for you. And those of us that are trying to fit a round peg in a square hole and it's not working, I would bet if you reflect on it in that way, do you think maybe you're trying to do something you're not meant to do right now? Do you think we could maybe find a different approach that would work better for you? I think you'd be surprised what you would find. But the key to this working, the key, and I think the missing piece for so many of us is that belief portion. And Keely explained this so beautifully in the conversation that she and I had together. And again, I linked those in the show notes. And she talked about this, and I can't remember her exact verbiage, but another way of saying it is like, you must anchor the belief. You must believe that what you are doing will work, that you are worthy enough, that you are talented enough, that even if you post 3 times a month, the right people will find it at the right time, and it will always be enough, and it will always serve you. And you are never required to do a bunch of shit that doesn't feel right in your soul in order to be, quote, successful. As a matter of fact, that could be the detriment of your, quote, success. What if you believed that in certain seasons, less is actually more, and in other seasons, more is more? But you get to decide what season you're in. What if you decided whatever season you're in is enough and is perfect and is by design? What if you had that belief? So I'm just kind of ushering in what I am thinking of now referring to as conscious creators. For those of us that don't feel good, again, playing the game, tap dancing on the internet, creating for the sake of taking action versus creating because you actually want to create, it's time that we become conscious creators. It's time that we say enough is enough. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to contribute to a bunch of noise because I need to hit a number or a metric or because so-and-so said I needed to. If I'm there, it's because I want to be there. If I'm speaking, it's because I have something to say. If I'm creating something, it's because there's reason behind it that is backed with my belief, that is providing value to those who are going to see it. That's conscious creation. And that is what is speaking to me right now, and that I'm really excited about. And the more that I practice this, the more that I'm seeing that it's more than enough. It's better than enough. It's so much more potent. It's so much more magnetic. It's so much more valuable. There's energy behind it. There's soul behind it. There's heart behind it. God's behind it. And that looks different for everybody, right? Like, I'm certainly not saying that, like, if you love to do the reels and the trends and you love showing up every day and giving every ounce of your energy and sharing your whole life on the internet, and that feels good for you, I'm not saying that's wrong. And I'm not saying that I'm any better than you. I'm saying good for you. I am so happy for you. There is so much room for you. And clearly that is a strategy that works. That's just not me. And where I was going wrong is I was trying to make myself be okay with that. I was trying to put myself in that box because it worked for everybody else. And because I, for a small period of time, accidentally bought into a belief that I don't want to have, which is that's what's required for me to be successful. It's not true. It's not true. So what if what you actually want is so divine, is straight from God for a reason, because you're meant to go do it in that way for whatever reason, and we may not know why. But anything else that's not that will never feel right. It will never work with as good as it could until you finally say, okay, I'm done. I'm done walking through mud. I'm turning around and I'm going to find a different path. Oh, this one feels lighter. This one feels more fun. This one feels more exciting. I'm going to try that. Oh my God, it's working. Holy crap. Why didn't I do this months ago? We're not all meant to do the same things. Even on the internet. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you. Oh, let me just land the plane. I wanted to circle back with what I was saying about being honest. So I'm so thankful. And this is just such a message and reminder to all of us. I don't care if you are a leader of one person, right? I don't care how big or small your platform is. You no doubt have some level of influence. And sometimes when we realize that people are actually listening to what we have to say, sometimes when we have something to say that may go against things that we've said previously, or may feel vulnerable, or may put us or shine a light on us that may not look perfect, we can sometimes succumb to the fear that people aren't going to like it, or are going to unfollow us, or won't respect us anymore, won't want to work with us anymore. And I just want to tell you what I know for a fact now, that could not be further from the truth, that your truth will always serve the highest good, and that there's no way you could ever fail by being honest and sharing your honest to God truth. And I know this for a fact. As leaders, none of us are perfect, and nobody expects us to be perfect. Some people do, but that's their problem. That's not ours. But to pretend that you always have it together, or that you always know what you're doing, or that you're always confident, or that you never fail, or you never doubt yourself, is not only completely inaccurate, no matter who you are, but also it's setting a standard that's false. And that can be really damaging to the people that are watching you. And when I sat down to record the episode, the one before the Keely interview, I had a lot of doubts, and I certainly thought twice about posting it, because I was like, gosh, what are my clients going to think? What are you going to think listening to this? Like, are you going to feel like I don't want to do this anymore? Or, are you the mind does so many crazy things, right? Like, our fear mind is just that. It's going to conjure up the worst of the worst. And if you let that win over faith, I fully believe you're cutting off a large percentage of magic that can take place in your life. Because by me posting that episode, it brought in a ripple of conversations and awareness and understanding that I couldn't have imagined. So many of you resonate with this. So many of you have been feeling stuck and insecure and doubtful, and telling yourself the lie that you simply don't have what it takes to be successful online, or maybe like this isn't right for you anymore because it wasn't, things have changed because you're in a different season, right? Like, you're looking at it from an angle that really is not serving you, versus reminding yourself, oh, I'm not a robot. It's okay to change my mind. It's okay to change my strategy. We're going to be okay. There's a million different paths to where you want to go. If the one that you're walking on has a ton of traffic, change paths, try something new. And it's been absolutely incredible, the response that I've received, but I could not have received that or experienced that had it not been for me being honest. So there's that. Be honest. That's all I have for you today. I love you. You got this. You are so fabulous. Your message is so powerful. Share it when it's time. And that's it. Okay. See you next week. Bye. Or you know what? See you when I see you. Bye.